Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today is going to be a good message. I'm telling you, if this does not shift some things for you instantaneously and throughout the rest of your week, I got nothing, because this is one of the most powerful principles that I myself use, that I use for my clients. And I really just wanted to do a podcast about it because there's so many different layers of spiritual growth and personal development and things that we are healing and constantly kind of like sharpening our sword on in this journey of life. But one of the things that I am kind of the most passionate about is quick, easy, instantaneous shifts in perspective or thinking that can take us off the crazy train and off of our normal default or pre-wired response and into a different direction. This is why I love breath work. It's why I love EFT. I love somatic regulation and these little tricks to work with your vagus nerve to kind of drop you out of that fight, flight, freeze, fawn state into an embodied, balanced state. I'm always talking about these. I use so many different tools in my practice. And today I want to talk about one that has all of those characteristics. It's quick, very easy. You can do it on the spot, real time, because that's the thing is we can sit on a meditation mat and we can have an hour, 2-hour therapy session that, we have some breakthroughs, and we can journal and we can go on these retreats, and all of those things are amazing. I love them. I do them. I attend them and offer them. But also we need things that really help us in the moment to moment, daily chaotic aspects of life, right? And so perspective shifting is that. We get so addicted to our thought processes and to our default thinking and ways of catastrophizing and, thinking of the worst and living in the future and judging other people and being attached to the way we think things should be. Like, there's a million ways this manifests, right? But what I want to kind of highlight here, and the application I want to use here, is this concept of right and wrong. So you may have heard me say before, or someone else say, that spirituality is the ego's favorite place to hide. And virtue signaling is kind of one of the best places that the ego likes to show up. And what that means is we think that it's okay to be a total asshole about something or get all worked up or judgy or in our feelings and emotions, and maybe even we're hostile or we're shitty to someone based on the principle of we think something's right or wrong. We think someone should not be doing the thing, and if we think we're justified because we have this metric of right or wrong and they're doing the wrong thing, then it's just like game on. We're going to be angry. We're going to be judgmental. We're going to be reactive. We're going to maybe attack and criticize. We're going to start a fight. We're going to get all worked up and put all of this emotional energy into something and someone else that really ultimately doesn't have much to do with us, because we're right. We think that something should be a certain way. And because it's not, it's all bets are off. It's just game on, right? All that spiritual stuff goes right out the window. It's hard work. It's hard work to let go of these concepts when we believe in our core that they're right, and often they are. I mean, any sane, healthy, normal person would believe that, hey, you should not abuse animals, and hey, you should pick up after yourself or push your cart back, right? There's certainly a moral compass that we all want to strive for, and we want to try to inspire other people to kind of walk that same path, right? That's why I'm in this field. That's why I do what I do. I try to be an advocate and a champion and an educator. I try to do the work myself. But man, sometimes that makes me very, very vulnerable to the right or wrong thinking that can lead to a lot of suffering in my own life. A perfect example of how this looks, because I love speaking on examples and sharing my own story and process, because even though I've been on this path for a long time, clinically, personally, like everything, it's still something I have to constantly work at. Just like I have to go to the gym and eat right and drink my water every day, I have to constantly cultivate these skills and practice these tools. And the perspective shifting is a hard one for me, because of several elements of my health conditions. So I have some major sensory issues, like some sensory processing issues, and that can make being around certain environments where sounds are present very challenging for me. And because I feel out of control, it's not something I can control no more than I can control a peanut allergy. When I get overstimulated, I start to kind of spiral and my thoughts sort of jump on the bandwagon. It's like, okay, well, this sound is happening and I can't control it. And so now I'm going to get really angry at the person or the thing that's creating the sound. And I'm just going to make it a lot worse than it is, right? And then if I think there's an element of right or wrong involved in that, then my mind is just going to have a heyday. We're going to go from bad to worst to like absolute worst, right? And so what this looks like in this most recent experience for me is going to the temple. Buddhism is kind of the path that I walk and try to implement. And again, sometimes I'm doing great, sometimes not so much. So I was at the Buddhist temple. I sat down for the meditation. We're dropping in. It's, 5 after. We've already done the introductions and people should be in the temple basically at this point. So I get all cozy and the meditation starts. And all of a sudden I can hear all these people, like I'm right by the main door. I can hear all these people not only coming in late, but they are just like loud. They're talking, they're laughing. I mean, it sounds like they're like right here with my sensitivities and how close they were to the door. They're just carrying on. And I'm like, the process of these services and these classes is very consistent. So from basically 10:05 to 10:20, like there's going to be a meditation happening right inside these temple doors. I hadn't slept very good. I was tired, but I got there and I raced to get there on time and I'm ready to just drop in and have this great Zen meditation, right? But these people are outside and they're making noise and my little sensory sensitive brain instantly starts to get frustrated and it can't focus and I can't hear the words. And, there's just this push pull. Again, this is an actual thing I experience. It's a problem. But then my mind starts jumping in and it's like, these jerks, like, what the hell are they thinking? They know, like, why are they late? They're being so loud. Like, why are they being loud? They shouldn't be loud. Like, what are they doing? And it just starts like going from, again, bad to worse to worse to worse. And I was like, okay, I caught myself pretty quickly. Ironically, the series of classes right now that I'm in there is about anger and resentment. So I was like, okay, time to put the principles into practice, Holly. I'm like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Focus on your breath, focus on the words, which again, that is something that to a limited degree I'm able to do. Like some people could maybe do that a little easier, but I did try and I was like, no, the noise just kept getting more loud. There was more people coming in. And so rather than let that really just ignite this huge sense of anger and entitlement and rage and resentment and like ruin my whole service and ruin my whole day, the thing that I did instantly was just detach from the story, release the story and the idea of right and wrong that I had in my head, which was that they shouldn't be out there, they shouldn't be late, they shouldn't be loud, and that they were ruining my day. Okay, so what does it look like if I just let all of that go? What's the opposite of they're not supposed to be out there making noise right now or being late? What if I just let myself believe that was the story? They're supposed to be out there. They're supposed to be late. They're supposed to be noisy. Well, even though I don't enjoy that experience and it's still difficult for me, it doesn't actually change the reality of what's happening. But what it did do really powerfully is it allowed me to completely release this concept of right and wrong and something bad happening because of somebody else, something happening to me. And it put me back in the driver's seat of my emotions and my experience. So again, I had tried for 3 or 4 minutes to kind of zone out, to train my brain. Okay, like, let's not think there. Okay, let's not go into victim mode. Okay, let's just try to redirect, breathe. I did all those tools. But because this is a challenging area for me, after that, I was like, okay, you know what? This is not going to be something you can overcome. So rather than just trying to push a boulder uphill and making something very challenging for you to try to drop into a meditation where you need total silence, just shift. So I just reached in my purse, I grabbed my notebook, And I just started journaling some thoughts, some reflections from last week's class. I put the date, I wrote what the class was about, things I was going to be doing anyway, but I just shifted and I was able to do that no problem. Like to actually visually write and focus there, the sound did not interrupt me whatsoever. The sound was only an enemy if I was trying to get to here and I thought I needed it to be this way. And this was the obstacle, right? So I shifted my perspective of course, they're supposed to be late and they're supposed to be making the noise. So now that everything is happening exactly as it should be, I went from life being like horrible and everything's wrong and everyone's inconsiderate and a jerk and ruining my day to this day is happening exactly as it should be. And it might be challenging in this way. So I take it a step further and say, well, how can I just shift out of that? I'll just not try to meditate right now. That's a perfectly accessible choice for me. Great. I have that option. How cool. They're late. They're being loud. Awesome. They're entitled to do that. And I am in full control of my decisions here, which means I'll just do something different. And it worked perfectly. And it was a great class. The second closing meditation, it was like radio silence. And oh, that silence was just so magical to me. But nothing was lost. I didn't let that thought or that situation completely derail my day and my mood and hijack my nervous system and my energy and my perspectives on people and my experience at the temple and everything else. Just that quick. I mean, because I tried for those several minutes to see if I could drop into the meditation, that was really the most intensive or the like longest part of the process. Because I do try that. Like I am kind of always trying to push myself and, you'll try things on. Does this work now? That's a little bit of a stretch. So let me try this one. But if I had not tried that, the second I heard people outside and had the thought, they're not supposed to be out there, they're being loud and they're interrupting me, I could have just been like, I just won't meditate. Like it could have been that fast. And so for the most part, you have this something that can be as quick as literally a second to maybe a couple minutes where you're trying to reground, recenter, maybe breathe, see if you can shift. And if you can't, you're maybe trying a couple different tools or perspective shifting options before you reach okay, so I'll just journal today. No big deal. Like no harm, no foul. Cool. Everything's right. That's a very quick in the grand scheme of things. Again, we'll say 5 seconds to up to 5 minutes. That's a little pocket of time. But you're already there anyway. You're already with your thoughts. Your brain's already working. Your mind's already chattering. You're already doing the thing. It's not like you're losing anything to do this, but you're gaining so much, especially if you're able to come up with a positive solution and not waste so much more time. So that's very different than letting this take over and your fight or flight system getting activated. And then at lunch, you're mad at your friend because you still haven't resolved this and you snap at her and she gets mad and you go home and you're just like, today sucked. You just lost a whole day, 12 hours. That could have been great because that unbridled, unregulated emotion and mindset and, thought process and victim kind of consciousness just took over. Just because somebody was late and they were loud, you have two different paths. You always have two different paths you can choose. And the more you choose, the more positive, compassionate way to look at things, the more productive, constructive way to respond, the bigger that muscle gets and the easier it is to flex. It's just like going to the gym. The more you train, the better that muscle memory becomes and the stronger you get overall. People often go to therapy and to these big moments like plant medicine ceremonies and they want to get on the craniosacral table or have Reiki done. They kind of hand over the authority to someone else to fix them. And then they don't go out and make those moment to moment changes all day, every day. Not all day, every day generally, but you know what I mean? Like the majority of your decisions should be trending towards that positive direction. Am I at peace? Am I in gratitude? Am I in the present moment? Am I looking at things constructively and am I in control, or am I handing the keys to my happiness to everyone else around me, to the waitress, to the guy driving in front of me? It becomes so pathological when we are constantly acting as if we have no control over our experience as a human. We have a lot more control than we like to believe. There are certainly elements outside of our control, and injustice is real, and a lot of these things really happen, but our responses to them and our ability to detach from them are 100% in our control. And that's the real bigger work, right? Again, those other things are great. Last year, I actually stopped seeing people for cranial sacral sessions without doing several, at least 4 sessions of EFT coaching where I'm using all the different modalities that I use, because of that exact thing, that they would come to me and they would kind of just be like, okay, well, I've got all of this stuff and I want to get on the table and fix it. Not only was their system really never able to process and even get anything out of cranial sacral because they were so dysregulated and so chaotic, but they then would not have the tools to actually continue that facilitation and integration further down the road. So I just, the longer I've done this work, the more in tune, the more perfected my processes have become. And I was like, I'm just not going to get someone on a table. Even if I could create a big shift, it's just going to go right back. And I need to empower people with the right tools, not only to get the most out of these cranial sacral sessions or EFT or Psych K or whatever, but I need them to understand that they're in the driver's seat, they're in control. And I need them to build that foundation and understand what it takes to get the most out of that cranial sacral session and that deeper practitioner facilitated, regulation. But they're in control. It's still up to them. It's like going to the dentist, getting your teeth cleaned, and then never brushing your teeth. Dentists would not do that, right? I guess sometimes they do, but you know what I mean? Like, you still have to do the daily practice. And I think that that is where these huge gaps are in the therapy coaching space. For one, I think a lot of practitioners and coaches actually like to sell these big earth-shattering, experiences. And they kind of get addicted to that. Their own addictive nature is sort of present in that. Their own ego is like, look how much I can change in someone. In the fitness industry, I've seen it for years with like these extreme weight loss cases. They love to be like, this person lost 45 pounds in 30 days. Okay, cool. Did they completely destroy their metabolism and mess up their hormones? Did they injure themselves from overexercise? Did they completely set themselves up for binge eating for the next 4 months? What was the cost of that? And what good did that massive weight loss in 30 days do if it wasn't sustainable and maintainable? I see it all the time. Well, the same exact thing happens in the coaching and therapy space in a lot of ways. Often I talk about the gaps with talk therapy and that it's missing a lot, but that is one thing that generally does good, is it's a pretty consistent thing, but it's still an hour a week or an hour every other week, sometimes once a month. That is a tiny little amount of time to talk about your problems or think about tools compared to the rest of the month where you're not putting in the work, you're not utilizing these tools, you're not choosing a different thought process in the moment when it matters. Your brain did not get where it's at overnight. Your nervous system and its default patterns did not develop overnight. Thousands and thousands of choices and actions and triggers and behaviors went unchecked for however many years you are old. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. I have rarely discontinued working with someone in a coaching or therapy context because this work works. And I think one of the things that I am the most skilled at is meeting someone where they're at and really finding a perfect combination of tools that works for them in a way that matches where their nervous system is at. That is what I pride myself on. So I have a really good track record. And for 19 years, people get results, and that's really rewarding for me. But the few rare times that I have discontinued working with someone, it's because they just have a complete inability to ever take a little bit of that responsibility for their process and do the work, to do the tool, to put the tools into action, to actually be like, yeah, this is me. And they constantly wanted to just for me to fix it. In the first 60 to 90 days, there's this beautiful relationship that builds where they don't see what's possible. They don't see their potential. They don't know what's on the other side, but I do, because I've done it thousands of times. I do kind of take their hand, and I am leading and I'm showing them what's possible. And I'm, that's a process, right? That trust building process where they see, I can do this. I can do this. That's a beautiful art and science, like 100%. But eventually, as I start to take my hands off, it's like think of a parent teaching their kid to ride a bike without the training wheels. Eventually, the kid has to be able to trust themselves to drive, where the second the parent takes their hands off, they're not like, I can't do this. And so that is the most important part of the therapeutic relationship that I think gets missed, is I don't want you to be dependent on me. I don't want to just take your money if you're not willing to do the work, but I want to show you the path and the way and teach you how to use these tools real time, because they all build up over time. And eventually you need to see me less. Long-term therapy and coaching is 100% a great idea. It's just like if you like working with a trainer and having them take you through your workouts, do it. I've worked with the same clients for years and years because it's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's easier to show up and have that accountability. It's great, right? But I don't want people to feel like if something happened to me and I was in the hospital for a month, everything that we've done for the last 5 years is like inaccessible to them. I don't want to create that kind of dependence. And this is, again, why I love teaching clients these really simple, easy, real-time tools like perspective shifting that can transform so much, that when you understand these tools and you really get it and you start practicing it, for the rest of your life, you have this tool. You may have paid $200 for a session with me, but for millions of times over, you're using that tool for the rest of your life. The return on investment there is profound, versus just sitting and talking with me about your problems and me saying, oh, well, how do you feel about that? Or maybe you could do this. Like, I actually make people, I teach them how to really apply this real time. I'll role play with them. I'll go to another situation and say, let's take that situation and now apply this tool. And what does that look like? The practice makes perfect part is incredibly important here. So I hope that this is exciting to you, to think about the idea that these little tools that you can do right now from listening to this podcast can have profound impacts on your life. If coaching or therapy is not accessible to you, if that's not in your budget, a big retreat or plant medicine ceremony in the jungle is not accessible to you, that's okay. And maybe it'll happen someday, maybe it won't. But my goal for you, especially with today's session, is for you to understand that you hold so much power in your mind and in your ability to just shift your thoughts and choose a different story, narrative, and thought process. And over time, those build and build and build and build. And before you know it, without ever hiring a coach or a therapist, your life can look completely different. And that is the beauty that each and every one of us hold inside our own brains, minds, and bodies, the ability to shift things. And small, gradual shifts done over time create so much bigger and more sustainable results than these huge, big pockets of change. Again, everyone knows someone that went to a retreat or to a seminar and they got really revved up and they were like, hoorah, I'm going to go change my life. 4 weeks later, hey, how's that diet going? Screw it. I couldn't stick to it. How's the investment portfolio? No, it's too complicated. There's a great book that speaks to this that I'll share in closing. It's called The Slight Edge. Actually, two, The Compound Effect and The Slight Edge. These are two books that I love to listen to every year. I have a collection of maybe 20, 30 books that for 15 plus years, I listen to once a year because the principles are that powerful. And it's always great to, again, just remind myself. Both of those talk about the science behind making small, subtle shifts over time and how much more how much more of a change that creates and the results that gives us over a smaller period of time than trying to do these big, huge things that aren't sustainable. Again, I've totally seen that, applied that, and utilized that in my fitness career over the last 2 decades. But the same exact thing translates over when we're trying to rewire our brain and our nervous system. We're trying to get things to function a different way. We have to do things differently. And these simple little things, they're doable. It's like if you have 100 pounds to lose and you have this huge, okay, I've got this fitness textbook and there's 9 million things I can do and all these exercises and which machines do I need? And People get really caught up in that. They buy treadmills and they become clothing racks. What if you just said, can I walk 5 minutes for the next, like 5 days a week for the next 30 days? Well, that feels doable. And once you start doing it, at the end of that 30 days, you're like, wow, maybe now I can do 10, or now I can add that gym membership or start lifting some weights. Again, same exact thing applies to our mindset. When we think about, okay, I've been in toxic relationships my whole life. I've struggled with this addiction or codependency or this really hypervigilant anxiety state. When you think about everything that goes into changing that, it gets overwhelming and just perpetuates the issue and perpetuates shame and immobilization. If you haven't watched the video I did, I'll link it below, the nervous system 101 and like the different states that our bodies get in of like helpless, hopeless. Definitely go watch that because I explain more. But if we feel like something is insurmountable and then we collapse into fear and helpless and hopelessness, like we're never going to get anywhere. Like, again, we can think I need to do this all day long, but if we can grasp onto one little thing in the moment, real time, hey, if I just look at this a little different, that's good enough. And then the next thing that comes up, if I just look at this a little different, I can change that. Hey, what if I decided that this wasn't wrong? It was just exactly as it should be. It's really nice to not have to try to control the entire universe. That feels good. I'm not so anxious. That was great. You're at lunch and the waitress is being rude or your food's late and you do the same thing and you just keep, it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's how you create a different reality. That is how you change so much. And just like you don't lose a bunch of weight from eating right and exercising and then stop doing those things, there's not an arrival point. There's really not. And I think that's just like in the fitness world. People think I'm going to exercise and diet and lose this weight and then I'll just go back to doing what I was doing before. If eating a certain way and not exercising got you to that point, and then eating a different way and exercising got you to this point, it's very simple math. If I do these things, I get here. If I do these things, I get here. You cannot maintain being here by doing the actions that lead you to here. That's what happens in our brains and bodies. And that is why these little things are so important to execute on the daily, real time, in the moment, over and over again. They will lead to so much change. And then as you can, hire the therapist, go on the retreat, have those big moments, but don't think that those big moments are actually going to be the things that change your life overall, because they're actually not. I went through this a lot with myself, a lot of highs and lows and motivation, and then couldn't execute and depression and self-loathing, such a vicious cycle. When you can step off of that crazy roller coaster, you're in the driver's seat and you take control of your life and you can steer that ship in whatever direction you want it to go, even if it's not an instantaneous, you're there in a week's time. This is your life. This is your whole life's journey. So what do you want to see in your field of view? In which direction do you want to be headed on your journey? Those are some questions to ask. And this is a great tool to make sure whatever you're focusing on, you're going to get more of. So do you want to focus on the world being right and you being in the driver's seat? Or do you want to stay in this future anxious thinking and everyone's a jerk and everyone's doing everything wrong and it shouldn't be like this and everything else, and get more of that? The choice is yours. It's like the red pill versus the blue pill. So choose wisely. And I hope this was helpful. If it was, definitely shoot me a message, tag this in your stories, share with your friends. This is, again, something I was really excited to talk about because it is so, so powerful. So let me know how this landed. And yeah, don't forget to share. So I will talk to you guys next time.